Principles, movement patterns and plays. Hello there, welcome back to the Virtual Factula. My name is Oscar and today I have a theoretical video for you where I'll be talking about the difference between principles, movement patterns and plays, and what the difference means when you're trying to train through a lockdown. So before we get to that, let's first talk about what these things are, shall we? A principle, I think, is a set of concepts that governs your fencing. The things that decide whether you're going to be able to hit someone without getting hit. When talking about the German tradition, Indes for a Nach might be a really good example. Movement patterns, however, is how you move the sword. They decide how you can quickly move the sword from one position to another, how to make sure that your structure is good while doing that, and preferably not to injure yourself while doing it either. Movement pattern therefore governs moving the sword. And finally, plays. Well, play is usually the form which in a manuscript a fencing master tries to teach those two previous concepts to students. So they are usually take the form of a scripted set of fencing actions that teach you a couple of movement patterns, and at the same time also are generally meant to teach you about a certain principle. So there we have it. Plays generally serve to teach you about movement patterns and about principles. So what should we care about that? Well, I think that principles and movement patterns are really equally important. You can't neglect either of them because you're going to find yourself fencing a lot less well as a result. However, to be able to practice those principles, you generally need to be able to fence with a partner. And if we're in a lockdown, that's going to be quite difficult. So trying to train through a lockdown generally means working on your movement patterns. And that's really what I want to talk about. How to do that. Now, you can be lucky and practice Meyer. And Meyer, apart from having some really good assaults that will teach you how to apply certain principles well, while also getting really cool movement patterns, he also isolates those movement patterns into striking drills. And those are really excellent. But what if your system doesn't have those isolated drills? For instance, what if you do Leckhühner? Well, it's really one of the reasons why I often see people advising against picking up Leckhühner straight away. It rarely makes explicit what you're supposed to actually do. It tells you the principle that you're learning about, and it gives you a large number of really interesting plays, but it doesn't often tell you exactly how you should do it. And the solution, quite often for people, is to go through simpler messer fencing manuscripts. And although that's not a bad thing to do, I think you should also try and pick apart those plays a bit more and see if you can get some movement patterns from it. Because as soon as you get those, you can really start going through the more complicated plays and therefore learn a lot more about the principles as well. So how to do that? Well, what I would do is take a certain play. If you're going through Leckhühner, usually the first play in every Hauptstück is a good place to start. Try picking that one apart. So see what type of movement patterns are going on. If we take the Zornhau, for instance, we can see that there is a downwards cut going on, so we have shoulder movement with the arm coming forward and down. After that, with our wind to the outside, we see a hand turn, we got a left foot stepping in like this. Isolate all these different movement patterns and practice them separately in drills. Then start putting them back together until you're once again back at the play as it is described in the manuscript. This is generally how I would advise people to go through practicing the movement patterns as they are described in plays. Now, hopefully this might help you a bit if you're struggling with interpreting a manuscript. I personally found that this distinction in principles, movement patterns and plays to be really helpful. If you want to learn more about it, get in touch with Caspar van Dijk. He's the original author of this theory and he can tell you a lot more about it than I can. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video, and I'd also like to give a shout out to all those who've by now subscribed to me on Patreon. That's really awesome. Thank you quite much. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, keep fencing. Till then.